So welcome back. It is final table time at the Dracakis Players Championship. Hope you've enjoyed the stream and hope you enjoyed a little break there as the table was rearranged. We put our 9 players around this RFID table, feature table here at the Southport Sharks. Braden, we've seen some very interesting play up to now, and it's probably just about to ramp up, I'd say.
Well, I wasn't aware who was on the other table, but we are in for an absolute treat. We've got Dipper, Gary Lynn, one of the best players in the country, and the great Michelle Anunu in seat 7. He's been winning. He's an APT main event winner. He's won countless titles. But speaking to him privately, the Players' Champ's one that he wants to win. He came fourth in 2 years ago, the one that I managed to be able to come out on top of. And he played a hand that he'd probably like back again, and he's put a target on my head ever since, and I haven't beaten him in a hand in 18 months, and it was all because of the Players' Champ's final table. That's when we met. He's really keen to win this, and watching Michelle play, it's like, honestly, this is a big call, but it's like Dipper on steroids. Michelle doesn't care about the math. He doesn't care about your equity. He just looks you in the eye and he plays. We've got a couple of recreational players here as well.
And that's always great to see too,
yeah,
isn't it? You haven't got
absolutely.
a table full of professionals.
You know, they've got the opportunity here to play with, Gary Lynn's going to be a player that's firing. Gary Lynn's going to be in 25 and 50K buy-ins. We're going to be watching him on Triton in a few years.
Yep.
These players are going to be able to say they played with Gary back, a few years ago, and I think we're in for a really exciting final table. Dipper, Michelle, Gary. And I did notice an avocado Rolex there on seat 5. I think he might be coming to play as well. He might be coming to play as well. So I reckon.
So for those who don't know, Gary's here with his back to us with the blue and red uni jacket.
That's a WPT final table jacket.
It's a very decent stack. But probably the most notable thing is the age. Give us the age.
I thought he was 18, but I think he's 19.
Isn't that amazing?
He is amazing. I played last year. I went to Adelaide for a series, and he was there playing 1-2 No Limit Hold'em cash game live.
Wow!
And a few months later, he was in the Triton 25K. Meteoric rise, and obviously, as I alluded to before, he was in a spot at that World Poker Tour final table with over $1 million up top, a spot you may spend years and years getting in, and, I'm sure he regrets to this day. It's one he'd like back, but, he's back here, he's flicking everything, all the money he makes goes back into the community. He's so great for the game, he's a great player, he's really one to watch. But if someone can correct me on his age, but I'm sure it's 18 or 19, but it's definitely not older than that. He's a prodigy.
And he may have wanted a hand or two back from that, but the great thing for him is he's got many, many years of poker ahead of him to make up for that.
He does.
There he is, there, on the right of the screen. And
Antoine's on the final table with all the chips. I actually wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
That changes things.
That changes things again, doesn't it?
Antoine just really having, I think, probably a career high score last month, and that looked like a significant amount of chips. It could have been over 800. I'm not sure. We'll come back to that, but that's even more fireworks. We're going to have Antoine next to Michelle. Dipper, Gary, 4 of them on this side of the table. We've got an unknown. I'm sure if someone in the comments have played with Kleber before, I encountered him for the first time yesterday, and more on the unorthodox side. But he's got the Brazilian flag next to him. Not sure if he's, traveling. I don't think he's a professional, but maybe he's out here traveling, and he's playing poker. As a hobby, and he's come out here to to flick the Players Champs, but he was deep in the Hashem Deep Stake yesterday, and he's on the final table here, so he's got some moxie about him.
We'll send the scouts out to find out a little bit of info.
Yeah, you don't often see the Brazilian flag here in an Australian series, you know. They've got access to those huge prize pools online in America where they can play legally.
Antoine living out here now.
Yep.
So also has the French flag next to him, but
you'll see the Chinese flag next to Gary as well,
yes.
but he's been in Australia for
quite some time. And Gareth's got that South African flag there.
Hails from Adelaide. Don't know anything about Gareth, but I'm sure we'll find out over the next couple of hours. Very big international flavour here on the Players Champs. Quite rare for an Australian series.
Nice. And just as important, up there on the chat, you can see the payouts. It's we are in the money now, and 27.5K up top. Nothing to sneeze at.
Well, don't forget the $12,500 Players Champs Dracakis ring. You know, ever since I started playing on the scene 2.5 years ago, this is the tournament that a lot of people wanted to win. They've got that ring up top. Dracakis have been an incredible sponsor of the Australian Poker Tour. Especially, look, we'll go back to Sydney, the Vault, the $25,000 bracelet that went the way of, you know, Australia's best player, probably currently, Malcolm Traynor. You know, an incredible piece of silverware, but that ring's not too far behind. That's what they're here for. You know, I know for a fact they want the ring more than they want that. More than they want that 27,000.
Yeah, well, he did tell us that. Just as we look at a bit of an action flop here for these two limpers. Michelle's hit the queen, and Gareth with the flush draw.
So Gareth's raised from middle position here with the ace-5 of clubs, and Michelle definitely on the lighter side of a defence, sub 20 bigs, but you know, having played with Michelle a lot in the last 18 months, he does defend extremely wide. And this is what I was talking about before. He's not an equity math-driven guy. Yep. He wants to play hands. He wants to play pots. The Queen 7-0 is more than enough for him. As we see the check back here with a nut flush draw.
And there is the flush.
That's just such a poor card for Michelle.
Isn't it what?
You know, we just have no bluffs here either. You know, once Gareth fires a size that he does, Michelle's got to basically contemplate whether Gareth's trying to turn 8s, 9s or 6s into a bluff that have a club. But on flush completing boards, we might not see a big size here, and we don't. No, 35K. And yeah, it's good fold from Michelle. So
yeah, it's not a big size, but when you're only got 190 behind, it's
absolutely.
a lot of chips.
It is. It is. He goes from, you know, 16 down to, you know, 12 or 13 bigs. If he calls that off in a place where he's usually never good, you know, Michelle's a player that wants chips to play with. But that's, you know, we get to that position on the river by calling pre. You know, a lot of our decisions are really derived from the decisions we make pre-flop. And once we decide to call the Queen 7-0, we really get put in some funky spots on later streets. But, you know, Michelle doesn't care about any of that. He's always defended very wide, and he plays the man.
Just wasn't a great river card to play the man there, was it?
No, it's not much you can do. Math will catch up eventually.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting topic, and one we will be exploring through the week is the math will catch up, because we are going to talk to probably our math-based players versus our feel-based players, and sort of get a bit of a different way of thinking about poker.
Really, yeah, really looking forward to interviewing a few players, you know, a few stars that we've got here in the room. You know, let's take this as an example. You know, Gary Linney's is a kid of few words, but think about how an interview would look between Gary and Michelle Anunu and Dipper. 3 completely different styles of play. And it's going to be really interesting to talk to those guys, get a feel for what they do, why they do it. I know, look, I mean, Michelle just loves the game so much. He's He's a Israeli army veteran that learnt to play in the army for smokes. And here he is, an APT.
Yeah, amazing.
An APT, it's incredible. You know, imagine being on army base there, playing for cigarettes, and he's an APT main event champion. And you know, that's how he's learnt to play the game. Gary's learnt via, you know, solvers. There's more than one way to win. And those interviews we hope to bring to you later in the week are going to be a good insight into that, hopefully.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Sort of bolstering up the coverage by getting you away from the table a little bit and getting an insight into some of the players, into what it's like to come down to an event like the week here at the Southport Sharks. For people who've never really played beyond pub poker or home games, it's an eye-opener, but you know, it's also really refreshing that you walk in and think, hey, I actually can do this, rather than to be completely intimidated. And I think that's possibly a reason why the more novice players shy away potentially from something like this. They do feel they're going to be intimidated, not made feel welcome, be outplayed. I mean, you might get outplayed, that's fair enough, but the education of coming down and watching a little bit from a rail, or entering into an $80 satellite or $150 freeze out, dealer dealt, you know, freeze out $150. I mean, how good's that? Where are you getting that?
No, you're not. You're just not getting it anywhere. You know, there are other operators that run that price point. There's no dealers. You know, you've got a dealer dealt professionally run series at that price point that's going to get an insane amount of runners. You know, I understand for people that it's a really big step to maybe play from your home game to, you know, playing in a game where you're probably playing at your sports club or with mates, and you've taken an interest and you want to come in to be able to, you know, play in the big smoke. But you've got to make the step at some point.
Yep.
And this would be a great series to do it.
Yep.
I didn't pick up a card until I was 25 years old. I started playing at my cricket club home games. And 6 months later, I was playing at Crown Casino, and look what it's, you know, it's graduated into us sitting here today. So you just don't know. You can come in, give it a shot. $150 deal adult. You couldn't start it in a better place.
One of the people will get up here soon. She has commentated a little bit with me in Adelaide and in Sydney, is a girl called Jade Mitchell, who started playing poker because she moved to Noosa and she didn't know anyone there. So she went down to a poker night at the pub and met all the people there, and then, you know, sort of became part of that community and learnt how to play. And now, you know, she's out winning tournaments and winning online events. And, you know, so you hear these sort of stories all the time. We spoke to Jade. We'll whack that interview up also through the week. So, yeah, we definitely want to add a bit of context and content to the stream. And
Jade is unbelievable. She has 16 live tournament trophies. Like, you could play professionally for decades without winning a single tournament. Like, that's the way that tournament variance works, and she just wins constantly all the time. And
let's just talk about this turn card for Gary, though.
We were too busy yapping away to see the action here.
Yeah, let's just talk about that turn card.
Check. On the club board, I find really interesting, especially when our hand does contain the 10 of clubs, but Gary's ripped off the offsuit 7 on the turn. Choosing sizes here for Gary's going to be really difficult once that turn goes check. You know, a lot of queens will still value bet the turn to protect their hand from flush draws. We could look at to target that, but he's found the check. Now, Kalen should choose a bigger size here, and what that's going to mean is that when the raise comes from Gary, he's going to feel sick. But
He may save himself some money.
Well, it's very hard. It's going to be very difficult to not call this off because our opponent never has ace-king. We may have heard about king-queen by now. We block all those combos anyway. Our opponent doesn't have sevens. As I said, we would have heard from Gary if we had ace-king. And would Gary raise king-jack here to this size? This is going to be really interesting. Gary's just going to have to go big here, I think. If he ever decides to turn Jack 10 into a bluff, maybe. But what is good about our hand is that our hand doesn't contain a club. So when we raise, we can raise bigger to get, once, because our opponents check the turn, our opponent does have a lot of flush draws, which have now completed on the river. So I think here we can go for a big size, and Kalen's going to...
Well, Kalen's got a pretty big stack too, so...
Yeah, but maybe...
So where does he go to? Does he raise this, what, up to 250?
I'm unsure here. We could jam for sure. We're not... Yeah, well, this is going to be an effective all-in. So we're going to leave ourselves with 40K behind, I think, which is I think what he's gone for. This is such a disgusting spot for Kalen,
isn't it?
I've played against Kalen at length in the last couple of months.
275.
And he's very competent. Such a good size from Gary. I'm not sure what we beat. I know. This is going to be really difficult to fold though, because as I said, opponent doesn't have ace-king. We would have heard about king-queen. Does our opponent specifically have king-6 suited, king-7-0?
King-jack, maybe he's worried about.
So here's the problem. I'm unsure. I think we probably do have to raise king-jack here.
Yeah.
We still lose to that as well. Does Gary raise king-9-0 to this size? The answer is probably yes.
Yeah, probably.
But on that flush completer, I'm unsure. This is a really difficult spot for Kalen.
So we can see the pot. He almost has to, doesn't he? He's called it.
King 7.
As the pot was 600, it was 475 before he called. So, yeah.
Now, the 10 of clubs in our hand makes things really interesting. It blocks the amount of combinations, genuine combinations our opponent can have that contain flushes. That 10x of clubs really works around the flushes that Gary would have. You know, he's not defending 6-2 of clubs and all these type of 6 club on the river. But these low suited clubs, maybe 5-2 of clubs, all these type of hands, I'm not sure Gary's going to be defending. So when we have that card in our hand, it takes out the amount of flushes our opponent can have. Now, is that going to make us call more or fold more? That's up for Kalen to decide, but it's just really hard to fold against a player of Gary's caliber with King 10. Really difficult spot to be able to analyse. But I think, it's very easy when you can see the cards here. Of course. We could find a fold there with the King 10, but we're literally putting our opponent on King 7 or King 6 suited specifically. That's only a couple combinations of hands, so maybe in the end we just got to flick this in and hope Gary just has Jack 10, maybe Jack 9 that had a backdoor flush draw. Really, really difficult to find bluffs. And when we can't find bluffs and we don't beat value, very hard. It's a very difficult spot for Kalen to be put in. So it's a really interesting hand. A couple comments coming in. Josh Barber has been active in the chat. Recent winner here of the main event about a month ago at the APL. Good affiliation with the Sharks. He's asking us if we can tip a winner or if we're allowed to tip a winner.
Oh, we're allowed.
We're allowed.
We're not betting on them.
No,
well, maybe, hang on, maybe we are.
Look, what's going on here?
So Dipper's got the aces here.
This is
And
hold on, let me recap this. Under the gun has limped with ace-9 suited, and Michelle has jammed king 2-0 for 12 from the cutoff, and Dipper's working up with aces. Okay, all right. Well, you know, Michelle will take lines like this from time to time. I think that he's looking at this limp as a sign of weakness. And, you know, trying to have a think about what's going through Michelle's mind here is that, you know, once he sees a player limp, he really wants to be able to attack that. Not sure King 2 offsuit's a hand we'd like to take, but this is what Michelle does. He'll look you in the eye, decide he doesn't have it, and all he's got to do is get through the players behind him. But
so
unfortunately,
Dipper's
just called, which...
Yep.
This is interesting. When players call in a spot like this, it's always a sign of extreme strength. So players in spots like this have recently been just jamming our hands because we jam a lot more of those pairs like 7s, 8s, 9s. We never just call them. So now we put aces in that range too. So calling is a really strong play here.
So I don't think that hand.
I was trying to be.
That hand is right. I don't think he's pushed him with a king 2. It might be queens. Is it queens?
King Queen. Oh,
okay.
my goodness. I was trying to be nice to Michelle.
Yeah, so that's totally not your fault at all. And an ace comes on the flop, of course.
We'll just make
so
sure.
He's still got the straight draw. So...
Yeah, so
Dipper's
just
avoided
recapping.
that straight, and
That's
Michelle is out. That's what it looks like.
So the hand is now completely standard. We've got a limp. Michelle's got King Queen O for 12 bigs. He's just always going to send that in, and he's unfortunate to run into the aces of Dipper. This is really starting to look like a Dipper tournament.
It is, and I don't think, Braden, that's an optical illusion. I think that the table is tilted over here because it looks like all the chips are down this end now.
They are, aren't they? Well, Anton's got 1.6 million.
Yeah.
And Dipper, after that, we'll get a recount of it.
Well, he's going to be probably close to $1 million, I'd say, and Gary's probably got about 750. So a lot of the chips are with 3 players down here.
And I'm not professing to know the players from seat 2 to 6. I've played a little bit with Kalen, but I haven't played much with the others. So,
but what you're saying is you're not surprised that those 3 players have got the majority of the chips.
No, I mean distribution is a big factor, but my point was going to be that it's going to be very difficult to overcome those 3 players with those amount of chips.
Sure.
You know, you're going to need to win a lot of all-ins. You're going to have to just run really well. But, you know, Dipper, we saw that fold with 10 left with the 6s. Dipper, even though he does play a lot of hands and puts you in a lot of spots, still protects himself well. Antoine's got 1.6 million. I mean, it's going to be really difficult to see Anton, Gary and Dipper not be in the final 4 just with the way the distribution is currently. Sure. But it is the Players' Champs. It's the best structured 1K buy-in tournament this country has. There's a lot of play. We're going to be here all night, so anything can happen.
So Dipper didn't quite pick up as many as I thought he did there. He's just a tad under 600 now.
Yeah.
But
so
I still think that's probably 3rd highest chips.
Yeah. So Kane would be in 4th. And Gareth, who got an even stack, and then Dipper's just got them covered. Now we've got an important question in the chat for what is our idea for a streaming schedule for the rest of the week?
Yeah, so we're going to pick up tomorrow on the grind, a tournament you're very familiar with.
No, only because I flicked a lot of bullets in it. I've never actually
So
won
this
it.
is one where I have seen players just make a beeline to the cashier and back and go cashier and back. It's
I
one of
mean,
those sort of events.
And you got to think too that you've got that late reg up until an hour into the next day. So I've known players to flick if someone knows any extra in the chat, but my maximum that I know of is 7. And I think that was back when it was a 1500. So we're in for usually in for a lot for the grind, but it's nothing for myself to flick 2 or 3 in there, just with the way the structure is, and very, very hard tournament to run deep in. It always gets a ton of runners. Conversely, that's why the Players' Champs is a really good tournament people have wanted to win for a long time, because it's historically always been a freeze out. This year we're trialling the 1 re-entry. I don't think that's changed things too much. We've got 99 runners. We've been around that 70 to 80 mark previously. But, the 1 re-entry, I don't think many people rebought. It's still basically playing like a freeze out, and it is a great structure. Completely different from the chaos that is the grind.
Yep.
So we're picking that up tomorrow and Thursday. And we'll be on the final table on late Thursday. We'll be here with you every night from now until Sunday.
So certainly the plan, Braden, is that we're going to put the stream up through the day. You'll be able to follow the table without commentary. We've come on early for this one because we sort of got into the money, or we got into the money bubble very early today, a lot earlier than we were expecting.
Yes.
We thought we wouldn't probably be on until maybe 6 or 7 with the commentary. But the plan is going to be to prime time this a little bit with the commentary and the content around what's going on outside as well. So we're probably looking at trying to prime time it from sort of 7 p.m. through till the end of either the end of the play or the end of the tournament. I think tonight, just on the basis of how this is travelling, we might be looking at maybe a 10 p.m. finish on this event.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Probably a bit later. The Players' Champs historically has been around a midnight finish, but it all seems to have happened a bit earlier today.
So we'll stay right through with this one tonight until it finishes. We'll pick up the grind tomorrow, probably around 6 o'clock on the commentary, and see that one right through.
Yeah.
And, we'll keep it going through the week. So if you haven't got much on, firstly, if you're around this area, I'd say get here. if you're
absolutely.
If you're in Brisbane or on the Goldie, or even up in the Sunshine Coast, come down and play a little bit. If you're stuck at home,
I know. I was on Sunshine Coast in the last couple of weeks, and it's about an hour and 40. I know I had to come here to work, but it was an hour and 40. It's a good drive down. It's definitely worth coming down. Even if you get yourself some accommodation for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can still come and pick the, if you came down here Friday, you can still play the 2.5, you can still late reg the 2.5K. You've got multiple flights of the mini main event and the Gold Coast Championship, which got a 150K guarantee for $600.
Now, how good's that? Let's just stop there. 150K guarantee for a 600 buy-in.
Yeah. I think look, the prize pool will be more than 150K for sure, but being able to guarantee that, let's just say you drive down from the Sunshine Coast, for example, minimum you're going to win 40K if you win the main event. And that money's in the guarantee, is in the prize pool no matter what, and you're in for $600. And, let's just say you came down on a Friday. There's an $80 deal adult satellite into the main event on Friday night, and you can play that flight on Saturday. You could turn $80 into what's likely going to be 50K plus with those deal adult satellites. It's a really good opportunity for you to be able to come and play down and take a look.
So come down and do it if you're in the area. You can even stay here at the Sharks. We've got a hotel attached. We're all staying there, and it's actually really nice. The little Mercure hotel that's attached here, and you've got terrific food and there's no question if you bust out, there's lots of entertainment here Friday, Saturday night. The joint goes off.
It does.
So,
I've got the band playing out the back, which unfortunately, after busting tournaments early, I've got to see the band play quite often. It's just a good vibe in the Southport Sharks. You know, you've got, especially on Saturday after a home game, you know, Southport play here in the Quaffle and it's a home game. The joint's just it's packed.
I think they're away this week.
They are.
So they're actually, this surprised me because I'm from Melbourne and I probably should know this because I'm very involved in the AFL. But the Southport Sharks are playing in the VFL competition, so the one level below the AFL.
Yeah.
And so they're actually playing against the AFL team's second team.
Yeah.
As well as some of the standalone VFL clubs, and Gold Coast and the Lions have teams in that competition as well. And so it's a really, really high standard of footy that they're playing.
And the putting this, how do I put this? Having played football, I'm from Melbourne, having played football my entire life, the clubs that were always the hardest to beat were the clubs with pokies.
Oh, yeah.
They can just afford that talent and they can afford to be able to play in the VFL. And, you know, if you've got that revenue coming in and those teams have always been hard to beat.
One of the blokes that I was hoping to get up here as a bit of a feature for this was actually Warwick Kappa, who played here for the Sharks. Actually played in 2 premierships, he told me. I think 1992 and 94, I think he said. He played in the 2 flags up here for the Sharks. But he did say that he's got absolutely no idea about poker. And that was probably a good reason to try and get him here. But
I'm not sure how I'd go in the booth with Warwick Kappa, I'm going to be honest.
Oh, no, I was hoping he was just going to play a bit. I wouldn't put him in the booth. We'd have to put subtitles in underneath. So.
Subtitles? I think you'd have to put in the beep. You can beep out the words.
Yeah, but when I told him that we were coming up here, he had fantastic memories of being up here at the Sharks, and first thing he said was what an amazing club it is up there. So if you haven't been and you're in the area again, or even if you're not, I saw there's $109 flights up here on Virgin at the moment. Just jump on and get up
less
here.
Less than a buy-in.
Yeah,
less
get
than
up
a buy-in.
Talking about guarantees, you've spoken about the 150K guarantee. There was a 75K guarantee for this one. Had dinner with Tony Hasham when this got going the other night, and he was a little bit, so, I hope we're going to go all right. And they already had 56 entries at that stage. I said, Tony,
you're nearly there.
Tony, I think you're going to be okay. And so we finished up not with 75, but 99 entries into this, and that's why you're seeing the fantastic prize money, and of course the top of the tree there, 27.5K. It's a lot of money.
I need to address the chat for the moment. I know we've been talking up Southport Sharks, but you'll see that Gary Lynn has raised under the gun with pocket threes. Now, I've worked on my game quite a lot, and Bert Perry, who is the number one player, who last year was the number one player in Australia, the Global Poker Index number one player in Australia, and he still probably is the best player in Australia currently. He told me I need to start folding these pairs in early position because you're so inclined to be able to get set over setted, and you really never. As by the way, both players have a flush draw and another one has a set. So let's just go back to the action, and I'll come back to Bert's comment later. But the reason Bert has chimed in there is because I was going to note that Gary has decided to raise with, a range that contains obviously 2s plus if he's opening 3s. You wouldn't think this would be a glaring error. But in the long run, these smaller pairs, as I explained on the bubble, really don't perform well in ICM situations. As we can see, Gary has a flush draw and a straight draw, but he's drawing very thin.
Yes.
Would I play this hand under the gun? The answer is, for the last 18 months of my life, yes. For the last month, no. And we don't want to be results orientated when we talk about poker, but this is the type of decision, you know, our post-flop mistakes really manifest from our pre-flop decisions. And the reason we're here is because we've decided to raise this. And, you know, now we're in a very funky spot, and we're going to be in a lot of funky spots when we have these small pairs in ICM situations. And Antoine, I'd be surprised if he didn't raise. He's cutting out some type of click, I feel. Gary just can't proceed here.
There's just too much that beats him here, isn't there, really?
He could be drawing dead. Yeah. So it's the other. I know he has a flush draw and a straight draw. You know, our opponent defends basically all of our suited ace-X. Our opponent probably just defends ace-jack suited as well. So we've got ace-2 suited all the way to ace-jack suited of diamonds. We've got the 3 that takes away those combos. There's still 8 other combos. We may even defend ace-queen. We may not 3-bet that, but I think at 35 or 40 bigs, maybe we are 3-betting that to get it in, but we can do a lot of defending with that hand as well. So the important part about that analysis there is we could be drawing completely dead even though we have a flush draw and a straight draw, but Gary's going to defend and we'll take this to a river. I think we're about to see the worst part of why we raise these hands under the gun, what the result could be.
It better not be a 3. Okay, so... So, Braden, if Gary calls that, what does another 5 do here?
Well, I mean, Antoine's always betting. Now, we've got to choose a size. If we went a little bigger on the turn, and we could have reduced the stack to pot ratio to around 1.2, which would allow us to jam the river. We still probably could jam the river. Antoine may go for all of it because our opponent can have those flushes that I spoke about as well. So, you know, let's just say Gary is sitting here with a flush. He's going to jam.
Yep.
Yeah. So if Gary is sitting here with a flush, we basically have to jam nearly always. So Gary's just probably going to tank and wonder what he beats, and he'll end up finding the fold. But his 3 of diamonds is really playing into his calculations of what Antoine could have potentially bluffed the turn with. Those hands will contain nearly always ace-X of diamonds plus another random card. Now, we don't beat any straights, we don't beat any pairs, we don't beat any full houses, we only beat a bluff. Now, when we don't beat value, what are our opponent's bluffs? This is what he's running through here.
I know we're privileged to see the cards, but Braden, I just look at this and I say there is absolutely no way he's calling here.
It's the 3 of diamonds that's playing into his mind.
Of course, I do get that, but I just can't see him calling here. He's still got a lot of chips. To me, that doesn't play out that a pair of 3s is going to win that for him.
So he's got to. This is what his decision's coming down to. Oh, I thought he was going to flick the call in there. I'd be shocked because the decision comes down to: does Antoine defend and call the flop bet with ace-8 or something? Let's just say he's got ace-8 with the ace of diamonds, right? Gary Lynn's trying to run through the combinations of ace-X hands that with the have a diamond and jam the river. They are his only bluffs, I think. Maybe we could have a... Maybe that's got too much showdown value. Maybe we can have a bluff like... 8-9. We don't call the flop with that. Maybe king 10 with a diamond that we floated with. It's so hard to find. I can't realistically find a bluff here against Antoine, but that's what I'm trying to input to the viewer, what Gary could be going through. He's such a good player. I think he's going to be able to find the fold here in the end. Few people in the chat thinking Gary's going to flick this in.
No, well, neither of us do, but
We
let's
can
see how
see
we
the
go.
car. Imagine if, you know, imagine if Antoine...
Hey, and so can Denick can also see the cards, and he reckons he is flicking it in. So
That's true.
I don't know, why would... I mean, Antoine can't really win the tournament here, but he can lose it. And it's just, to me, it's like, why does he push all in?
With anything less than what Gary has. So
yeah.
the explanation for that is Antoine can really start to put a lot of ICM pressure on Gary because he's got so many chips.
I get the ICM, I get all of that, and I don't know. I still don't think he's going to call, but someone's going to call the clock on him in a minute. This is what's going to happen. But
Antoine's got the call the clock eyes.
Yes, doesn't he? Oh. He's looked over now. It's the first time he's actually glanced at him.
This is what happens when you raise small pairs under the gun, Bert Perry.
Do you feel the longer he thinks, the more chance he's going to call?
Our chat is absolutely popping off. I think the clock's been called.
The clock now.
The clock's been called. Always, now I think Gary will flick it in. Calling the clock's always a very strong sign of strength. But I have a...
So just explain that he's got 30 seconds now, does he?
A minute.
A minute.
I
think it's 30 seconds, actually.
Is it really?
I think so, yeah.
He
did. He called it. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Goodness gracious me.
Well done, everyone on the chat. I did say the longer it goes on and when he calls the clock, he's probably a good chance to call. So
I think 80% of our viewers that chimed in on the chat said call.
There you go.
I couldn't see it.
No, I couldn't either. So congrats everyone on calling that. But no congrats to Gary. He's finished up in 8th spot, collects $3,000. I'm sure that he was hoping for a hell of a lot more than that from the position that he was in. Antoine becomes the massive chip leader now on this table. And I think someone a little while ago asked, are the commentators allowed to pick someone to win? I'm going to say Antoine, which is probably not a massive prediction.
Do you know
now.
what? This is this is the last time we're going to mention yesterday's final table. Look at it.
Yeah, look at the chip
stack.
Yeah.
That is the amount of chips I had, and that's the amount of chips Dipper had. Okay. And Dipper ended up with all of them at the end. So when Dipper is in, it is never over. Okay. It is never ever over.
All right. Well, I as much as I do actually think that Dipper's a fantastic bloke, plays great poker, but I am going to go for Antoine now, just with that massive chip stack. And that'll be a hand that we replay here, I'm sure. And it's really interesting how everyone's gone nuts and reacted to that, because
it's Tuesday night, it's day one. The chat was popping off. Yeah. Everyone was saying call. And it is now. I couldn't find it.
But have a look at the the differences in opinion. And this is why I love this game. I love this game because, for some people that is, and for me, I've got to be honest, crazy call. Someone said crazy. Others are like, of course he calls. He has to call there. So I love that. I love that about this game.
And for the people that are just tuning in, commenting on the hand, Gary Lynn is one of the best players in the country currently. He's at Triton. He's playing 25Ks, 50K. He's final table, final table, the biggest event we have in Australia.
Yeah.
Only a few months ago. But I'm never, ever, ever going to sit here and critique Gary ever. But Gary was in probably one of the biggest spots any poker player could be in his life, and he made a hand that he would want to have back. He's done it again.
Yeah.
So maybe, we should start looking at adjustments in live fields potentially instead of what Gary would be doing, playing 1 million hands a year online, because he'd like both of those hands back. I'm shocked that he put the call in, but so good to see everyone interacting with the hand and putting their 2 cents in.
And Braden Jinks, that's why you're here, because you are, in your own right, a terrific player, and I will never comment on a hand on as far as that was a good call, a bad call, or an indifferent call. I can be surprised by what happens because I play a little bit differently. The ICM and the math probably is a little bit further down the scale for me. I'm a bit more like a dipper, I suppose.
Yeah.
And sometimes the feel of that stunk to me. It just felt like, well, you can't call that, mate.
So
but I actually understand why he did.
Here's the thing. If you ever ask Gary about this hand, if you ever, Antoine's on it. Antoine's on it here. If you ever ask Gary about this hand, Gary will sit here and tell you for 30 minutes the exact reason and the amount of combinations, the price he's getting, the amount of times our opponent's bluffing to folding. But we are all in here, and Antoine's got Luke dominated.
So we've got the ace-king suited against the king-queen off, and it's Luke who is at risk. He's now a massive dog. Holy moly.
Flush? Running flush. Straight.
Hit the straight. Stays alive. So maybe Antoine's not running quite as well as you thought he was. Gets done there by the 9 on the river. Hope you're enjoying the stream. It's turned out exactly as we predicted when we sat down with 9. It's been action, 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 and
what's funny about this is the Players' Champs usually is, this is why it's such a good tournament to win. It's because it's usually very deep stacked, lots of small pots, lots of raising and calling. It goes for a long time because it's such a great structure. This has been the complete opposite of all of the Players' Champs we've seen in the last couple of years. It's just been non-stop action.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you've got someone who's got such a huge stack out in front too. Okay. See, I was about to ask this. When you got someone with such a huge stack, do the players further down the line feel that they do have to just get looser here because there is someone who's so far ahead?
I just want to make sure. I've found Kalen to be very competent, and I just want to make sure he's actually got 20 big blinds here. I would be utterly shocked if he's ripped in 20 bigs here with 8s. Oh, and I heard a moan there. I think he realises the error of his ways. He's just ripped in 20 with 8s. It's with ICM, our stack's worth so much money. We're probably still raising 8 sub 15. And
but an 8.
Sorry.
Forget it.
Don't worry about what I said. Kalen is inevitable.
Straight in the window.
Oh, hello. We've got some outs.
Some possibilities here for us.
Queen or a 10, but we've got 8s full for Kalen. That's a shocking beat for the Brazilian because here's what in a usual world would have played out here, because we just also missed. Kleber was down to 1 out. The big blind had ace queen. So let's just say Kalen raises, Kleber 3 bets. Ace queen could get in the mix there and Kalen folds. Kalen might even fold to the original 3 bet from the Brazilian. it gives us a chance to stay alive, but rip it in the 8s there and just binking off the 8. Don't worry about what I'm saying. Just rip it in and hit a set and you'll be okay.
But do you get my question? Because this is, coming very much from the, sort of the less regular player perspective.
Yep.
So the fact that Antoine's so far ahead on the chip lead, do the guys further down the ladder feel that they need to start getting a bit, looser with their stuff?
It's actually,
as opposed to the fact that if it was all a bit more even, that they'd probably be a little bit more careful, or does that necessarily come into the mix?
Do you know what my answer is going to be?
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite.
The opposite?
Because you're waiting for Antoine to knock out the other players in front of you, and you're able to ladder up.
So if your aim is to just ladder up, yes. What if you go in there and if you're Dipper wants to win this. He's not worrying about...
Dipper couldn't... We're not talking about Dipper.
Okay.
We're talking about 99% of the other players at the
Okay.
table.
Right.
If Dipper finds a spot here with 6 left to get Antoine's chips, he doesn't care if he walks out here with 3 or 27K. He wants the ring.
Fair enough.
So that's different. Every other player is looking for probably Antoine to get them a few ladders and pay jumps. But I think we are going on a half-an-hour dinner break.
We are. This is the dinner break. We're getting completely distracted because we're enjoying it so much. So, guys, hope you can come back and join us in half an hour when this fantastic final table of the Dracakis Player Championship resumes. Till then, go and grab something yourself and... maybe a stiff drink, because I think we're going to need it as well.
I'm literally going to have one after what we just saw there. What entertaining poker. Can't wait to see you here in half an hour.